Thank you very much. And thank you for your friendship and your leadership time and again, not just for firefighters, but for the right causes in Washington on Capitol Hill. We got a great group from Illinois here. I just said hello to Chuck Sullivan. I don't know if he's back in the hall, president of the Associated Firefighters of Illinois. I want to recognize Mark Sanders, the 8th District Vice President. And I want to send a word of greetings. I know my colleague Jane Shaheen will be following me shortly. But from the entire Democratic Senate caucus, starting with our leader, Chuck Schumer, thank you for being here. There's one Illinois firefighter who isn't here today, and I want to tell you his story. His name's Leo Andrade. He's back home working. Leo is a firefighter in Burbank, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, near Midway Airport. On August the 5th last year, Leo was sitting in the stands at Wrigley Field watching his beloved Cubs play the Oakland A's. It was the second inning, and miracle of miracles, the Cubs were actually ahead, 1-0. Life was good for Leo, and he was having a great time. And then he heard somebody yell out, "Somebody call a doctor, quick." A man near Leo had collapsed from a heart attack. Leo saw what was happening and made a split-second decision. He said, "Nobody has died in my hands, and this fella isn't going to be the first." The man's heart had actually stopped beating for 7 long minutes, but Leo never gave up, applying CPR until the paramedics came and took the man to the hospital. The doctors told Leo later that the survival rate for people with a massive heart attack outside of a hospital is less than 4%. Which just goes to show you, never bet against a professional firefighter, no matter how long the odds. Today, the man has survived. He and Leo are friends. They spent Thanksgiving together. I'm pretty sure that Leo would have saved this man's life even if he'd been a White Sox fan. And in Chicago, that's saying a lot, because that's what firefighters do. When people are in danger, you don't ask questions about their baseball loyalty, their politics, their religion, nothing. You know your job and you do it, running into burning buildings and raging wildfires. When duty calls, you answer. The bridge collapses, you're there. When the opioid epidemic reaches out to grab one more victim, you're there. When those deadly tornadoes ripped through Nashville and Middle Tennessee last week, firefighters and EMTs were there. In Washington State, 25 of your brothers and sisters quarantined and isolated after they rushed into that nursing home to take elderly people who were sick with coronavirus to the hospital. When the worst happens, you put on your helmet and gear, you jump on the back of the truck or into the ambulance, and you go, and you say, "It's my job." Well, maybe so, but it is one hell of a job. It takes more courage and skill than people in my business, and it takes a toll on you, as we've heard over and over this morning. It demands sacrifice from you, and let me quickly add, from your family. It's not enough to say, "I respect firefighters." Words are easy, but where I grew up, you just don't say the words. You show that respect is actually a verb. It's something that you believe and you do. You can't say you respect firefighters and deny them the right to bargain collectively for their fair wages and safe working conditions. We're all safer, America's safer, when you have a voice and a union. That's why I'm proud to co-sponsor the Public Safety Employer-Employee Cooperation Act. And we've got to make your job safer, and there are a lot of ways to do it. Safer grants, of course. Firefighter grants, of course. We do all those, but we need to do more. Here's something that everyone can do to show respect for firefighters and first responders. Slow down and move over when you see the red lights on the road. 25% of firefighters' fatalities are roadway accidents. And you're not the only ones in danger. Roadway accidents are the leading cause of law enforcement officers' line of duty death. Every state has a move-over law, but studies show 70% of drivers don't pay any attention. We need to fix that. I've introduced a bill called Protecting Roadside First Responders with Congresswoman Sherry Bustos to make education and compliance with move-over laws a national highway safety priority. We can't eliminate all the risks, but we can sure reduce needless risk. It takes courage to run into a fire, and it takes a special courage, an heroic level of courage, to keep coming back when you're so sick you can hardly breathe, and to come to Congress year after year, as firefighters have, asking that we keep our promise to the 9/11 responders. That's the kind of courage we saw from Detective Luis Alvarez of the NYPD Bomb Squad, God rest his soul, and other 9/11 first responders, including members of this union, who pressed Congress last year to do the right thing and didn't give up until we did. Thanks to them and to you, funding for the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund is now guaranteed through 2092. The Senate vote to authorize the 9/11 victim compensation, 97-2. When C-SPAN flashed that total on the screen, the time on the screen was 3:43 p.m. 3:43, a haunting reminder of what we lost. Tommy Foley was one of 343 New York firefighters who died on 9/11. He was a firefighter in the Bronx. His brother Danny was a firefighter too. Danny was off duty that day, but when he heard the tires had been hit, he rushed to help. Incredibly, after 10 days of digging, it was Danny who found Tommy's body. He buried his brother, and then Danny went back to work. He kept searching and digging on that pile for 8 months until the job was done. And even though he was sick with cancer from his work at Ground Zero, Danny Foley was at the White House when the president signed the 9/11 compensation bill last summer. Last week, his family buried him next to his brother Tommy, 46 years old. Thanks to the leadership of the International Association of Firefighters and other 9/11 survivors, neither the Foley family nor any 9/11 survivor's family will ever be expected to beg for health care and the support that they've earned. We know it's not just heroes of 9/11 who face increased risk of cancer. We heard it from the doctors, we heard it from everyone, and we know it's true. And that's why, as Harold said, the cancer registry is an important starting point. We also have to have presumptive disability, Harold. We do it with Agent Orange. We say to those Viet vets, if you were exposed to Agent Orange, here are the following things and diseases that we found are likely to be haunting you the rest of your life. The same thing needs to be done in your profession. You're exposed to toxic fumes and chemicals that your fathers and grandfathers before you never could have dreamed of. In fact, many of them, we really don't know the impact they have on the human body. You're the test case, and we need to stand by you because you're risking your lives to make sure others survive. And one last one. It's not just their bodies that take a beating. Firefighting is tough mentally and emotionally. Your spirit can take a beating too. That's always been true, but up until recently, we just didn't talk about these things. But returning veterans have really opened the conversation, and I'm glad they did, about the kind of stress and the kind of problems they face coming home. I have great respect for what you do, for all you're doing to reduce the stigma around mental health, and to make mental health care as basic as physical health care. Science and brain imaging are teaching us every single day of the impacts of trauma and constant stress on the human mind and the human body. We need to be open and honest about it. It's an illness, it's not a curse, and we can treat illness. You deserve that kind of care, and that's why I'm co-sponsoring the HERO Act. You've heard about it today. We need to work together to get it done. Let me close by just saying this. We come here today to tell stories of heroism, and I wanted to tell a few about people from my state of Illinois and other places like you who've risked your lives for people like me. We can tell these stories, but I'm sure many of you are saying, I knew that before I made my trip to Washington. That's why I decided to be a firefighter. That's why I work with these men and women alongside of them, realizing that at any minute we could be risking our lives for someone we've never met. So the most important thing we can say and do is to thank you. To thank you not just with words, but with legislation, with laws that'll help you do your job right, come home safe, and have a great retirement ahead of you with your family. That's our job. Thank you for doing your job. Great to be with you today.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you so much.